Welcome to Village Talk Podcast with hosts Cortland Jones and Shauna Felton King. Village Talk highlights the views and voices of the community. And now your hosts, Cortland Jones and Shauna Felton King.
Hello. Welcome everybody, and welcome back to another broadcast of Village Talk, where we highlight the voices and views of the community. My name is Cortland Jones, and I am here with my co-host, Shauna. Say hello, Shauna.
Good evening, Cortland. Good to be with you again today for Village Talk.
Yes, we are excited because actually the guest that we have with us today is also responsible for helping you and I to launch our nonprofit. And so we get the opportunity to invite others to meet this wonderful person that we've had the privilege of meeting in our journey of being entrepreneurs and nonprofit executives. So we're going to get right into it. Today we have with us, ladies and gentlemen, Jaemellah Kemp. She is a mother, nonprofit founder, and all things nonprofit management. Ms. Kemp holds an associate's degree in business administration and a bachelor's in business management from the University of Phoenix. She obtained her master's in nonprofit and association management from the University of Maryland, University College, now UMGC, May 2014. In June 2015, Ms. Kemp was appointed to UMGC's board of directors as the programming committee vice president. She went on to earn the 2015 Achievers Award, recorded a marketing campaign for the university's nonprofit program, and was spotlighted in 2018 as a University System of Maryland, USM, entrepreneur at the USM Chancellor's home for her leadership through It Takes Two Incorporated and its impact on communities. Some of her highlights include being awarded 25 scholarships totaling $8,300 for her organization, It Takes Two, which was founded in 2012 as a nonprofit organization. She extends her love for community through Jaemellah Kemp Consulting, a nonprofit startup for firms that assist aspiring and new nonprofit founders to build successful nonprofits founded on sound principles and relevant information. Ms. Kemp has launched over 35 nonprofit organizations from vision to implementation with 100% 501c3 approval rate. Nonprofit startup and board governance are her niche service areas. And if that isn't enough, ladies and gentlemen, she became a published author this year, October 2020. So let's welcome to our show, The Nonprofit Legacy is the name of the book, Miss Jaemellah Kemp.
Hey guys, how are you? I'm so happy to be on the show. Thank you.
Yes. We are just excited. I mean, that's quite a bio, Jaemellah. I'm like, wow, you've got so much and you've done some great things. We're just excited to hear more about your journey. Wow.
Yeah. I know you asked for 150 words, so I think I went over that limit. So sorry about that.
Oh, that's okay. Because I'm sure in reading this bio and just our reaction, I'm sure you're here to tell us just how awesome this experience has been without any hiccups or challenges. And, when you got your purpose and you know what you're doing, everything just falls in place, right?
Oh, I wish that was the story. I wish. But let's get into it. Let's just tell the truth.
So speaking of telling the truth, I have recently reflected on the reality that sometimes our purpose, and it looks like for you, your purpose was to support nonprofit initiatives, whether as an executive or in supporting others. Is it true for you, as it has been for others, that sometimes our purpose is born out of our pain? And if so, how would you like to share what your initial journey in being a nonprofit executive was like?
Sure, absolutely. So I didn't see myself here 8-10 years ago. My journey started back in 2010, really, when it was time to send my son to kindergarten, and I couldn't afford food and school supplies in order to do that. And it was at that time that God actually laid it on my heart to say, you're going to help others who are struggling with the same thing. And, I'm like, really, that's what you want me to do? And oftentimes we kind of talk ourselves out of our own blessings. So I actually sat on the vision for It Takes Two for 2 years. But then we finally just stepped out there on faith. And here we are 8 years later. So did I see myself operating and leading a nonprofit? No. But when you're called to do something, it's probably something that you've never, ever thought of. But when you say yes and decide to be obedient, that's when the manifestation of who you are starts to really come to the forefront. So how we got into the consulting was after I obtained my degree from University of Phoenix. It was time to start paying student loans back. And I was like, well, I can't afford it. So let's go back to school. This is all about being a single mom, working full time, my son playing football and running track. But I just didn't have the financial means to start paying those loans back. So I found out that once you go back to school, then your loans are deferred. So I said, okay, well, let's put 2 more years to the end of it before I have to start paying them back. So that's how I got into University of Maryland, University College, which is now University of Maryland Global Campus, for their nonprofit association management program. So when I graduated from there in 2014, it was time to start paying the loans back because I was not going back to school for the doctorate. I was done. Okay, there was no more pushing it back. So I was like, all right, Jaemellah, you got to start paying these loans back. So how are you going to do that? Well, God said, use what I gave you and put your degree to work. I said, okay. I was like, I started a nonprofit. I'm educated in it. I work at a nonprofit and I've been there for 10 years as a director of member services. So let's just use what I know and help other people to kind of get from their point A to their point B. So that's how Jaemellah Kemp Consulting was started. And I was a little scared doing that too, because I'm like, am I really qualified enough to teach people how to do this? And I'm like, yeah, I'm educated in it. I'm being successful at it. So I teach people what I know, and I very much stay in my lane, which is why I focused on startups from aspiring to 1 to 5 and really focusing on the education, the infrastructure, the compliance, the management of actually operating a nonprofit. So again, when you're called to do what you're called to do, it's going to happen at some point. And service is who I am. I love serving people. I love giving back. And both of the entities are just my way of being able to do that.
No, I love it. And, obviously you and I have worked for a while together. And like we mentioned in the intro, you helped Shauna and I start our nonprofit. So we're familiar with you on some level, but this is an opportunity truly to let our guests get to know you. So Shauna, I just want to share this and then you can jump in. When I listen to you, Jaemellah, I think of how God dealt with the widow. There's a widow in the Old Testament whose husband died, and she was concerned about debt and how it was going to affect her and her child. And God told her to gather the jars, and as many jars as she gathered, God caused the oil to flow until she couldn't find any more jars. And she was able to live off the overflow after paying off the debt. And that's what comes to my mind listening to you, because he helped you use that enterprise, that knowledge that you had to get you to where you are now 8 years later, which is awesome. And I think it's a great testimony. And I just wanted to share that as a way to encourage those who, like you, are at that point where they're not sure. Should we do this? Should we step out there? I don't know if I'm qualified. So I'm curious, Shauna, what are your thoughts after hearing her tell that story?
I'm really touched, first of all, because to hear your personal reason for going into this, which I think is different for everybody, but to hear, your honesty and just like, what, I had some debt, I had some student loans, and I had a child who needed some stuff. I mean, that's real talk, right? And so many of our listeners probably can, we've all dealt with those situations. I'm curious, as a consultant, who is your client? Do you have a typical client? Do you hear something similar in the people who are coming to you saying, hey, Jaemellah, can you help me start a nonprofit? Tell me about kind of the work that you do.
Sure. So my clients, my avatar, as they like to say in the for-profit space, I found out that they are African-American women between 35 and 44. That's seems to be my niche. That's not who I necessarily target, but that seems to be who gravitates towards me. But I am open to any founder aspiring, thinking about starting a nonprofit, and those who have been in service for up to 5 years. I decided to focus on that niche area because that's where you succeed or you don't succeed. So I want to get you in the beginning to give you literally everything that I know, that I've experienced. I've bumped my heads, what I've learned in the classroom, which a lot of things they don't teach you in the classroom because I really don't think that they can. It really is the life experiences that you go through, and your ups and your downs, that I'm able to, communicate that to my clients. So I really focus on those who have a passion, who want to give back, they want to do good, but we take it to the next level and they need to understand that doing good is a business, right? So yes, all day long, we want to give back, but we need to treat the nonprofit as a business because it is. So that's why I focus a lot on the educational piece and the operational management. The paperwork part is easy. Like you could probably do that on your own, but once you get that 501c3 status, that is when the work really, really, really begins. And that's where I hone down and niche on my training as well as board development, because that's where a lot of organizations are failing as well. So it's a two-pronged approach in those who want to start the nonprofit and others who need to take it to the next level, where board governance and finding board members, that is like the number one challenge to nonprofits, is finding that right team. So I've kind of settled in that lane and just trying to get as educated about it as much as I can.
Wow. That's really interesting. And I appreciate you saying that you operate your nonprofit as a business because, and I'm just thinking about Cortland and I, we've worked with you for many years and we just had a passion to do and to serve. And, a lot of times we don't always think about the business part of that. You're like, no, I just want to do a good thing. I just want to do something for the community. Forget all the paperwork, all that type of stuff. I just want to help the community. But, you're right. You still, if you want to do what you've been called to do and do it well, we still want to make sure that we're looking at it as business.
Yeah, absolutely. From the strategy to the how, I really focus on the word why when I start with any client. Is the W is who do you want to serve, right? Who's your passion population? The H is the how. How are you going to bring this vision to life? How are you going to take them from point A to point B? How are you going to measure your success? And how are you going to communicate your impact? All of that should be established well before we even get into the paperwork part. Because once you get that status, it's go time, right? And you don't want to spend your time trying to figure out what we need to do. Let's do our due diligence and do that first. Let's get a plan in place. Let's think about how we're going to bring in funding. Let's think about where our people live, what they really need by doing what we call an environmental scan. Is really figuring out, is this needed in the community? Because there's tons of duplication of services when it comes to nonprofits. So if we are going to step out there and start yet another youth organization or those servicing the homeless, how are we setting ourselves apart? How are we going to make sure that we can get the capacity, the funding, and not be in competition for dollars with all of the other hundreds of organizations that may be servicing that same population in that same state? So we got to take a strategic and intentional approach to doing this work.
And I just want to add, because you and I have had these conversations before. From the time I met you, Jaemellah was willing to come meet me. We met off LinkedIn. So, that confirmed the value of a service like LinkedIn and the network that it provides. I've always let you know how much I appreciate what you do, and it just seems like it's so easy. I just always applaud you because you do well knowing it's not. Have you ever gotten to a point where you were just like, I don't know, I need to just find a job that pays bills and move on?
Well, I have a job that pays bills. So let me just set the tone. Like, I work full time. I'm a mom. I operate It Takes Two, the nonprofit, and Jaemellah Kemp Consulting. And I try to do my bit of mentoring as well. So believe me, the full-time job, I like to call it the fiscal sponsor because it allows me to fuel my passion projects and still live and take care of my responsibilities. But having so much on the plate and being a giver by nature, all we do is pour out. And I got to a point a few years ago where I was completely depleted. I had nothing left. I didn't want to do anything. I didn't want to go to work. I didn't want to do anything for It Takes Two. The consulting, I was just done. I wanted to close the shop, everything. But that's because I